Hello, I'm here with another video about the prologue of the Canterbury Tales, and we come across the introduction of the next program by Geoffrey Chaucer, or the narrator of the tales, or the narrator actually of the frame narrative of the story, who is most probably an alter ego of Geoffrey Chaucer. Anyway, the next pilgrim is another member of the clergy service, who is the friar. There was a friar, a wanton one and merry, a limiter, a very festive fellow. A limiter was someone who had a district of himself to beg actually and to gain alms for the church. So he gathered the people's money for helping the church. In all four orders, there was none so mellow, so glib with gallant phrase and well turned speech. So he's very fluent with language. He speaks in a very fine way, nice way that matches the characteristics of his job. He had fixed up many a marriage, giving each of his young women what he could afford her. He is forced to fix marriages because he has relationships, and we know a Catholic priest or a member of the Catholic Church, the member of the clergy, I mean, could not marry, and they cannot marry even today. And then in England, the religion, the official religion is no more Catholicism anyway. At the time, it was Catholicism, and he was forced to fix marriages because he had maybe it's an indirect reference maybe to relationships to many women and the young girls, and he's forced to find husbands for the girls he was related to. He was a noble pillar to his order, highly beloved and intimate was he with county folk within his boundary, that his area, and city dames of honor and possessions. Dames are girls, so he's nice with everyone, but he is more intimate with girls, for he was qualified to hear confessions. And why people in general are kind of liking him because he's also listens to their confessions, and there is kind of an intimate relationship between him and the people, where he was qualified to hear confessions, or so he said, but more than priestly scope. Friars are not supposed to do the task, but it seems that he has the license. He had a special license from the Pope. So he says, Pope has enlisted me as someone who can listen to people's confessions and purge them of their sins. So when in that system, the Catholic system, when the priest listens to the people, they are purged from their sins, and they are purified after the act of confessions. Sweetly he heard his penitence at shrift. Shrift means that session of confession, but pleasant absolution for a gift. And he gave absolution, purification to them. He was licensed to say that whether your confession is accepted by God or not, he was God's representative actually. He was an easy man in penance giving, where he could hope to make a decent living. Why he is easygoing with penance giving? Because he not also listens to the people, but he asks for money. And he says, if you give me this money, I would help church with this money, and then your sins are purified. Where he could hope to make a decent living, that's why. And the word decent, the expression decent living is used in an ironic way, of course. And Geoffrey Chaucer had, and it's a verbal irony, Geoffrey Chaucer means the opposite. It's sure sign whenever gifts are given to a poor order that a man's well shriven, and should he give enough, he knew in verity the penitent repented in sincerity. So it's even a fact that when you pay, your sins are purified. For many a fellow is so hard of heart, he cannot weep for all his inward smart. Sometimes the confession session might not be perfect, or it doesn't go quite well because that the person who was confessing could not cry and shed some tears. So because of that, the friar, or in instead of that, or in its place, in the place of the tears, for that absolute confession, he could take some money. And by the way, let me add something here. The word smart in the medieval context doesn't refer as an adjective to someone with a cunning or cleverness. It referred to a wound. So that some people had an inward wound. Because of the inward wound, they went to the priest, and the priest could purge them away from the sin. And then someone, to be purified, you had to shed some tears, but some people could not. In a way, the friar could compensate for that, and earn some money as well. Therefore, instead of weeping and of prayer, one should give silver for a poor friar's care. He kept his tippet pocket stuffed with pens for curls. He gives pens, hairpins to girls, and pocket knives to give to pretty girls. So not only they are given the absolution and purification, they are also given some gifts if they are pretty women. And certainly his voice was gay and sturdy, for he sang well and played the hurdy-gurdy. Hurdy-gurdy is a kind of musical instrument. At sing-songs he was champion of the hour. His neck was whiter than a lily flower, but strong enough to butt a bruiser's down. So he's the perfect guy, nice and everyone's favorite at gatherings. And at the same time, he can defend himself and others. So many women would love him because he had a good voice. It seems so. He can sing. He can play. He is not that much dirty. He's whiter than a lily flower, and he's very strong. He knew the taverns well in every town, and every innkeeper and barmaid too, better than lepers, beggars, and that crew. A leper is someone suffering from leprosy. Leprosy is a kind of disease in which people's skin got whiter than normal, and they would lose some parts of their skin anyway. It's normal, maybe that kind of common today, but on those days it was lepers, beggars, and that crew. So he goes to taverns, he goes to inns to have some time of pleasure, and again, this does not match the qualifications and the expectations the church has from a man belonging to that place. For in so eminent a man as he, I was not fitting with the dignity of his position, dealing with the scum of wretched lepers. So he doesn't go where these people go, these poor people go. He goes to places where the upper crust of society may choose. Nothing good can come of commerce with such slum, because they have no money, and gutter dwellers, but only with the rich and victual sellers. So he opts for places in which he can find rich people. But anywhere a profit might accrue, courteous he was and lowly of service too. He is humble in its own place. Natural gifts like his were hard to match. He was the finest beggar of his batch, and for his begging districts paid a rent his brethren did not poaching where he went, and he pays his rents, his dues for the district because he can gain money um, from the people. He can convince the people to help the church, and then he can pay the rent of his district. For though a widow mightn't have a shoe, so pleasant was his holy how-do do, he got his farthing from her just the same before he left, and so his income came to more than he laid out. The people were convinced when they heard him, they were convinced that they have to help the church. So he can use his language in an artful manner. And how he roams just like a puppy, and then he's happy when he can take the money. He was ever prompt to arbitrate disputes on unsettling days for a small fee in many helpful ways. He can make disputes among the members of clergy so that they can fill a day that their teacher might be satisfied when they are arguing, not then appearing as your cloistered scholar with threadbare habit hardly worth $1. And he doesn't wear just ordinary clothes. Uh, he doesn't wear tattered like things, but much more like a doctor or a pope. Of double worsted was the semi-cope. You can see his appearance in the picture. Of double worsted was the semi-cope upon his shoulders, and the swelling fold about him, like a bell about its mould, when it is casting rounded out his dress. He lisped a little out of wantonness to make his English sweet upon his tongue, especially for women. When he had played his harp or having sung, his eyes would twinkle in his head as bright as many stars upon a frosty night. This worthy's name was Hubert, it appeared. So here, uh, the introduction of the friar ends, and we will continue reading the prologue in the next videos.